Welcome to the Sacred Designer Podcast. I'm your host, Alyssa Martin, kitchen and bath designer, entrepreneur, artist, and creative soul behind the Kitchen and Bath Digest. This is a show where we weave soulful design into every space and redefine what it means to create with intention. Here we don't just create beautiful homes, we design from the heart, embracing both the practical and spiritual. By pressing play, you'll be joining a community that creates not just for function, but for a sense of sacred space and personal alignment. On this podcast, you will learn to merge the art of design with soulful living, turning every remodeling project into a journey of self-expression and holistic beauty. This isn't just about kitchens and bathrooms, it's about embracing design as a path to a richer, more beautiful life. So let's step into this sacred designer together and create spaces that resonate with your soul. Welcome to the Sacred Designer Podcast. If you're new here, we're going to talk about the intersection of home and soul and how the spaces we create live that are never just aesthetic or functional, but they're about energy, intention, and transformation. I sit down with designers, organizers, healers, and space holders who understand our homes are mirrors. And when we shift our spaces, we shift our lives, whether you're remodeling your kitchen, or you're organizing your home, rearranging a closet, you're in the right place to believe that it's deeper than it actually looks. All right, so today we are here with Amy Walton. She's an interior designer, fine artist, and so much more. So today's theme is drawing the sacred manifestation spaces through art, nature, and ritual. Today's conversation explores the beautiful intersection between art, nature, and the spaces we create to support our lives. Amy's relationship with creativity began as a child, growing up in a farm in Pennsylvania, where she spent most of her time exploring the woods and observing the beautiful rhythm of nature. That curiosity and wonder became the foundation of her artistic expression. She later pursued interior design and West Virginia University, but never stopped cultivating her painting practice, studying with master painters and drawers, inspiration from landscapes like dramatic coastlines of Maine, where she lived for many years. Today, Amy lives in Northern Virginia, where her creative life continues in a deep and integrated way, designing homes for clients, painting in her art studio above her garage, and holding space for deeper reflection and gathering in a separate structure on her property used for shamanic ceremony and sound healing. She also collaborates with sound practitioner Jenny Guff, who hosts sound baths through the Ohm Dome in Hamilton, Virginia on her property. Amy's life is beautiful, and it reflects the idea of our homes that can be spaces of creativity, connection, and ritual, not just shelter. So welcome to the Sacred Designer Podcast. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm really excited to jump into this. But where you grew up on the farm in Pennsylvania, you were exploring the woods and like spending time with the animals. How did those early experiences shape the way you see beautiful spaces today, or if it does at all?
I think it had a huge influence on how I see the world. My dad was a veterinarian, so there were lots of animals. And the farm that I grew up on was a 150-acre farm.
Oh, wow.
And the beauty of that time period was your kids went out the door in the morning and you didn't see them until dark, maybe.
So true. 80s child over here for sure.
But it was great. You total freedom and autonomy. My parents were not afraid for me to go explore 150 acres. Like, see ya. I would pack myself a little lunch and I would walk with my animals into the woods and we would just explore all day. We'd sit by the creek and I'd, pick up salamanders and snakes. I loved everything. And for me as a child, nature was God. It was everything. It's like, look at how all of this is created. I was never without wonder about how whoever created this could create this much diversity and magnificence and beauty. And so from a little girl, that's just how I felt about life. And I started taking sticks and stones from the woods and I started making little villages out of them, little buildings. and little worlds, and I would have a little roof, and you could take the roof off and look inside a little building. I started creating worlds from nature. I had a turbulent household inside. There were six children, and it was very noisy. And there was some turbulence with my parents, a great deal. So I would just go outside, and that's where I found wholeness and peace. And
That's,
that's it felt like I understood what
yeah,
it meant.
that's beautiful. And would you say that, making art was a way of you to process that emotion?
Very
And
much.
yeah, I
And in
think that makes a lot of sense.
the deepest times of my life, art was my healing process. It's like, take this pain, let's transmute it into beauty. And
Oh, I love that.
so
Yeah,
but from a tiny child, I started transmuting pain into beauty. It was like one of the only things I could think of to do with it.
that's incredible. And I would assume that nature kind of remains the constant source at this point, right? And when I look at your pieces, they're all very nature based and just even the color content too is just incredible. So, um, but I mean, what other lessons do you think that nature, teaches us about creating meaningful spaces?
I mean, nature teaches you about life and death,
Yeah.
especially on a farm. There is a lot of death.
Hmm.
So you
That's
have
true.
this that life is fleeting and delicate and fast. Because so many of our animals would die, and my dad would say this is a part of the process. We had a huge graveyard filled with all the animals that
Yeah.
died.
Tell me about it.
We had this graveyard at the end of our yard, and we would put the animal or whoever passed in a box, and we all the kids would march down the hill to the graveyard, and we would bury the animal, and we would all cry our eyes out. And Dad would say, "That's okay. It's part of it.
Yeah.
You love, you grieve." And it was just a part of it. And just, watching nature, the deer, the birds, the animals, and our dad would just say, this is all part of it. And so it gave me a really broad, cyclic view of life and nature and of how the world works.
Yeah. It's a rhythm, right? I mean, it's definitely the rhythm that you're kind of describing. And do you see them like, like structures like in a composition of rhythm as well, like architecturally, like when you're creating different spaces like that, or maybe even like when you observe landscapes today, um, do you see some kind of rhythm that happens with that as well?
Oh yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it is. There's nature always has sacred geometry, in the Fibonacci sequence and the patterns of sacred geometry in nature, when you're painting a flower and you start to really look at it and you see that beautiful composition.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. So it makes me more aware of patterns and how they, the spirals and how they create life. It's fascinating.
I would love to be inside your brain. I'm sure it just kind of just becomes natural to you at this point, to be able to translate that onto the canvas and, or even just the thought process of thinking through what you're about to paint and all the above. So that's incredible. I love that. That's so
Us
fun.
too, with my kids, was like, look at that sparkle of sunlight. Look at that. Did you see the trees? Did you see that leaf? Like, this is the most and they, yeah, mom, I saw it.
Or it's so funny, like as an interior designer, like I feel like you have to like touch everything, or like the textures, the patterns. It's just like a whole other world.
Almost painful. I want to touch it, feel it, see it. It needs.
Yeah.
It's funny.
So the one phrase of yours that you say like you draw structures and you manifest them into reality. So what does that process feel like for you? And like, 'cause to some people that's just like an unheard notion. So like what does that mean to you?
I think it was more accidental, actually. I didn't realize what I was doing. Um, I drew my own house and I drew up all the floor plans for it. And, there was really not much hope in me building it anytime soon, but I just thought, I need to draw this. I'm gonna have it drawn. I'm gonna be ready because if I have it drawn and I'm ready, then it will come. And so we ended up buying the land and we couldn't build the house for years because we didn't have the money. But I wouldn't give up on the dream. I'm like, no, the house is drawn, the house will get built. And finally, after a few years, we worked it out and I built the house. And then, the next client came along and I started drawing their house and then we built it. And then the next one. And I found that any house that I took all that time to draw got built. I even found a painting that I made when I was, I think, 18 or 19, and it was a painting of a farm with a big pond and two little boys jumping into the water and a giant oak tree over the pond on a farm. And I just painted it when I was young and thought, oh, this just makes me happy. Well, years later, I found it in all my stuff. And that's exactly what I kind of made at my home. I ended up
Yeah.
having two little boys. I ended up having this little farmette and a giant oak tree that cascaded over a pool instead of a pond. And I thought, wow. So I don't know. And then the Magic Cottage, the same thing. I drew the Magic Cottage in my backyard, which is where I have sacred um events and healing spaces, which we'll talk about in a moment. And I thought, well, if I draw it, it will come. So I drew it and it took a while, but then it got built. So I think there's something very powerful just about the pen to paper of intention setting. And if you have something in your mind and you actually physically put it on paper, the power of it coming true is much greater than if it's only swirling around in your head. That's what I think.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. That is like that just gives me chills. It's so beautiful. It really is. I mean, it's such an art to draft too, and to not only that, but creating an elevation or even a perspective and like your story of your boys on that image, that is so darling. Do you still have that? I would assume you still have that too. Is it near you?
Not a very good.
I would love to see it. So for those of you who are listening, we do have oh no, these videos on YouTube so that you can kind of see if you would love to see that.
Okay. Um, a painting filled out.
Oh no.
Well, this painting, I actually I didn't even know I had it until years ago, and I was going through old stuff and I found it.
Oh my gosh.
So here's the giant tree over the
Yep.
and the little boy diving in and the little boy in the water and that's the background.
Wow, that is incredible. What
So
a lovely story.
funny. Well, and I mean I found it. I probably hadn't looked at that painting for 30 years and I found it in a box of stuff. And I went, huh, interesting.
Because I mean, that's what I would call an intuitive sketch or an intuitive, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
that's incredible. I mean, talk about magical too. And how would you say that like your art has influenced the way that you approach interior design?
It's influenced it a lot because I see everything, as a container of beauty. And I've studied a little bit of feng shui and Marie Diamond. And her last book, um, Your Home is Your Vision Board.
Oh, yes.
And it is. Your home is a reflection of what is inside you. So your home is your vision board. So when I work with clients and I've had the amazing opportunity to build these homes for clients, my approach with them has been very different. I ask them to give me, and this has been just such a fortunate um, thing for me to have the opportunity to do in my career. Um, I ask them to give me a wish list of what they want in a home. Now, these are total custom homes. And first I ask them to give me the wish list of what they want. We want a first floor master bedroom. We want a big eating kitchen. We want a study the, they give me the list. Usually we know the land that they have and how we're going to orient it on the land. And I say, I want you to walk through your house in your mind. And, you're getting up in the morning and you're having your coffee and you're looking at what? The sunrise, the sunset. You're looking out the backyard. You want to see this, you want to see that. And I try to get them to walk through the house. So then I just start sketching it very loosely. And I would meet with them and we'd walk through the house together and say, you know, like, we're going to open this cupboard and this is going to be here. We're going to go back here. And, do you want to walk on the back of your house and have a big mudroom? Do you want to, and really make them in their mind walk and live in the house? And then I take their ideas, we keep tweaking it, and I draw it, and then we would come to a point where I had it pretty well drafted, and then I would have to find a true architect, a real engineer,
Yeah.
do CAD and make sure that my ideas could work because I am not an architect, I'm not an engineer, and I did not do CAD in college because it was a long time ago. But the beauty of it was I had to draw things out, and again, I think drawing makes you really think about the physical space
Yeah.
because your mind is creating it as you draw.
That's incredible because that's what truly I think is the magic and the power of you drawing. And
Yeah.
then people are so lucky to have you because I mean, a lot of designers don't take the time to think about lifestyles and goals and, in that visualization process. And you're kind of the conduit to the people being able to see that.
Mhm.
That's incredible. I don't think people really think about it that way, but when a client's home does begin with a drawing, and that's usually how you would start it, right? Like you start them with drawings.
I just start
Um,
and I keep taking it to them rather than, sometimes architects come up with these plans and, they throw it at the client and the client can't really think about the house because they don't
yeah,
think in terms of floor plan. And a lot of people don't really understand floor plans.
that's
Um,
very true.
when I'm sitting with them drawing their house, I mean, I can take an eraser. I'm not on a computer. I can
Yeah.
take an eraser and go, well, let's move that wall.
How, how do you tend to preserve that artistic spirit though, like through the construction process? Or how involved are you with the construction process? Yeah.
I'm there all the time. I mean, when they start digging the hole, I love it. I love construction. I love messes. I love demolition. I love all that stuff. I want to be there when they're digging it. I want to see the footers going in. I want to see it going up. I mean, I would be there for every step of the process. I love it.
Oh,
And
that's incredible.
if you're there, you had it in your head, you can see, I think that window's something's off. And you can catch things before they go wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true.
The job site a lot if I'm doing a design build.
So it sounds like a lot of your work does involve designing homes.
Mhm.
And these homes usually become gathering spaces for like families and friends. What emotional qualities do you try to embed into those spaces, if any at all? Or
Peacefulness, calm, serene. That's like my number. I want people to feel calm in their spaces. So through use of texture, color, light, that the spaces are very calming and inviting and warm and welcoming. And I
okay,
had the opportunity to do a vineyard, Williams Gap Vineyard in Round Hill. I had the opportunity to do that, and it was a huge space. It was challenging to make it really warm, but I did my best to make it a really warm, inviting space, and it's a beautiful project. So I've done some restaurants and vineyards and a lot of renovations, additions and
okay,
renovations, which I love as well.
awesome. Um, are there architectural elements and spatial relationships to nature that support connection and conversation? Like, is there things to think about? Because you said, like it's hard to sometimes with the space that you're given, but
Yeah. Um, More rounded shapes,
okay.
arches, and having everything not be quite so linear
Yeah,
because most American architecture tends to be very linear and boxy.
very true.
Um, and like if you go to Europe, you see a lot of curves,
Yeah.
arches,
The
steps
intricate details and the warmth and the colors and the depth. Yeah.
like stone. I love bringing in as much stone, wood, and texture as possible to bring nature into a home. That really makes a big difference.
How do you balance like artistic vision with those practical realities, because they are so boxy and, I heard you say like curves and what else can we think about like that can be added?
Lighting,
Oh,
light,
yep.
my
Hmm.
one favorite thing because to me, lighting is jewelry, and it's also that gives you another opportunity for curves and art and softness.
See, I'm glad you said that because I don't think people think about that and the way light is thrown, through whether it's a shade or crystal or even like the particular temperature of a bulb or things to consider, I feel like too, because those will always really change the overall warmth. I'm glad you said that. One of the things that I love about your story is that your creative life isn't separate from your home. It's really just kind of like built into it, which I think is so incredible. Like, I feel like things should always be just innately connected. For a lot of people, it's very black and white. So I think that's like just really beautiful about you. Can you tell us a little bit about, because I would assume you're in your studio in your garage. Could you tell us a little bit about more about that studio and what that space means to you in your practice, or what is it, any things that you've done with it that help you kind of, just with your creative process?
The studio is everything to me. When we were younger, we moved a lot because my husband was Navy, and I never had a dedicated space to work. I was on the floor, I was on the kitchen table. And so when we finally had the opportunity to build this home, I said, I really want a studio over the garage. And it was funny because he's like, oh, you'll never work out there. Well, I was out here nonstop.
Yeah.
I would do a painting and then I'd have to move it from the dining room table to make dinner for the kids. And I could never really throw myself deeply into the work because I was constantly interrupted or had to move the work. So
Mm,
I created this space and I made it filled with light. It is covered in windows, lots and lots of light. Um, it would be a space where I could become completely immersed in creating. And
I
that's what I,
love that.
so
Yeah.
I'm so lucky that I have this studio. It has been, I have produced more work since I got this studio than I probably did my entire life combined.
Wow,
'Cause
that is incredible. Thank you for saying that because I was going to ask like how has it, affected your work, and it sounds like profoundly.
well, I can have five projects going at once. I can have a design project going. I can have
Yeah.
different paintings going, drawings. It can all be going at once. I can and not be disturbed, and I can come right back and jump back into it. So that's fantastic.
That's one of my dreams is that because at one point we won't be at this home forever, but that's one of my dreams to like create an office in a creative space. So that's just so lovely. So you also have a separate structure on your property where you have those, sound baths and ceremonies and things like that. Um, can you tell me a little bit about that space and how that came to be?
Yes, it's called Cottage. And I came up with the idea. I started thinking about it many years ago, but then I kept really thinking about it. And in about 2018, 19, I drew it and I started really, really thinking about it. And I just felt extremely compelled to do it. I was like, nothing would stop me from doing it. And my husband was not particularly thrilled with me. But I said, I have to do this. I have to build this thing. And so one morning he came out and I kept having flags in the yard of where the building was going to be. And I kept moving them, the flags, and he's just laughing at me. And then one day a guy started digging footers and he said, what are you doing? I said, I'm doing it. What do you? It's like, no, we need to talk about this. I said, no, we don't. I'm doing it. I'm sorry. I'm building the Magic Cottage. So he gave me a little flack, but then everybody was on board because it started getting built. And my intention for the Magic Cottage was healing work. It was not going to be a studio. It was going to be, I wanted to have sound healing, drum circles, drum making workshops, art workshops. Anything that was in the Magic Cottage would be sacred and healing for people. So anything in there would just be a beautiful experience for whoever walked in the door. And, it took a little while to kind of get it going. But I finally met Jenny, who is a sound healing practitioner, and she's the best in the world. and we bonded and we started working together. And I think we're up to 30 some events together since we met.
Woo! That's incredible.
And I've had drum circles, drum workshops, drum making workshops, art workshops. I'm about to do a lot more art in there and art workshops in there. Um, I'm looking for other practitioners if they, come up with something they would love to share that feels right to me, because anything in that building that goes on, I just want it to have a healing property for people.
Do you feel like the vibration of that space has just raised, or even maybe the property since you've built that there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Does it feel like a part of you has come home because of that? I feel like getting that.
Like
Yeah.
meant to, I don't know why, but I was really meant to do this because everyone that comes here, and you personally have experience with it,
Yeah.
comes in not being quite sure what they're getting into. And every person that leaves, I think, feels connected, whole, calm, and they feel better.
You're making the world better like one person at a time, and I love that.
Small.
That's true purpose, Amy. It really is.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, it's beautiful. It really is.
It's been so healing for me,
Yeah.
and the people that come and the connections that I'm making. And it's just a really, really beautiful, powerful experience. And I'm just so honored and grateful that I have the chance to do it. I hope I can do it for a long time.
Yes, that's amazing. You were saying you wanted to do more art things in there too. Did I hear you say that?
Yes,
What does that look like? I'm so curious.
I recently there's a new nursery that's in our area, and they turned it into a really beautiful facility. I've been wanting to teach again, and they're teaching classes, and they took one of the glass greenhouses and they turned it into, they call it the glass room.
Oh, is that the orchid class that you were doing? Okay, yeah.
They had people, repotting orchids and prune your fruit trees, and it's educational, so they're getting all these educational things, and they asked me to teach. And so they said, maybe you'll have 20 or 30 people. We announced it. We only had 2 weeks for people to sign up, and we have 42 people
Woo!
instantly. And I thought, there is a demand for this. And so I went over there yesterday, and they said people are asking by popular demand more classes. So I have another one set up for April 25th. And then I just thought, there's a need for people to be doing hands-on things. And I think that our world is so incredibly fast. There is so much technology. It's so fast-paced and disconnected and moving, moving, moving so quickly that people are craving hands-on physical things with their own ability.
Yeah.
So they want to paint, they want to pot, they want to plant, they want to learn. And there's a deep hunger out there for people doing this. So I'm going to do it there, and I'm going to add classes at the Magic Cottage, because then I can really be more intimate. I can teach them a lot more techniques about painting and really get on a deeper level of teaching them about painting. And they're all completely beginner, and it's about sharing with people, the medium of watercolor or whatever else I decide to teach, how beautiful those mediums are and how soothing and healing working with art is for the soul.
Love it. So cool. Um, so like with when it comes to, these healing paintings and all of those things, um, like for example, like would you say that like growing up around Maine, surrounded by those dramatic coastal landscapes, like did that influence, your artistic voice, or are there certain landscapes that stay with you? Like in your painting. I guess I think people kind of struggle with what do they start with, like what do they paint? I think it's very clear with you, what you're inspired by. It's like nature and landscapes. But is there one in particular that resonates with you, or do you like look for the magic, I guess? Does that make sense?
I think, I just see all of nature as so incredibly beautiful that, I mean, I love to paint a flower as much as I love to paint a sky. Um, But I mean, landscapes probably, and living in Maine was extremely beautiful.
Mhm.
Incredible. That northern light is very sparkling and beautiful. And the great thing about Maine was all these amazing artists came to Maine to give workshops because Maine was so fantastic that like they were all coming to me. I didn't even have to travel. They all came to Maine and I just signed up for whoever came and learned a lot from a lot of different masters. I've studied with a lot of painters.
So
Um,
cool.
I've studied all over the world. I've studied with master painters because I think it's very important to study with other people
Yeah.
because if you are only painting on your own, you tend to get locked in your own style and your own development of skills. If you study with other people, you dramatically increase your perspective, your knowledge. You grow dramatically when you study with others and challenge yourself. It's basically challenging yourself. So I'm very much of a proponent for people to take a workshop and challenge yourself, scare yourself, you know,
Yes.
and then paint things that just speak to your heart. It's all about your heart. If something makes your heart leap, that's what you paint. That's it.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I have a sacred fire round
Okay.
where I just kind of ask them questions, okay? Um, if you don't have an answer, that's fine, but or if you do, beautiful. So, a landscape that always inspires you.
Water and sky.
Okay. A color that feels grounding.
Blue green.
A material that brings nature indoors.
Stone.
Ooh.
So,
A room in the house that holds the most emotional energy.
kitchen.
Ooh. Something designers often overlook.
Really listening to their client.
Mm, that's very true. A ritual that connects you with creativity.
Being outside barefoot.
Love that.
My
One word that describes a sacred space.
calm.
Mm. A feeling you hope people experience in their homes.
Peacefulness. Serenity. Like when they walk through the door and they can breathe. I'm home.
Yes. Amy, I just love you and your work and, your architecture and how you've brought it to life, and really your home itself and all the structures you've created. So with the painting and the studio and the ceremonial and the extension and your creative philosophy is just incredible. So it's really something to look up to, in my opinion. And it reminds us that the spaces we build can support not only our daily lives, but also creativity, reflection, connection, and just something deeper in general. So thank you so much for being with us here today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, sacred listeners, it's Alyssa Martin. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. But guess what? We're going to be at school. That's right, SKOOL. There, we're going to have a free community where there's all the tools and checklists and things of that nature to help you get your remodel done in alignment. But guess what? We're also going to have the design lounge where you get one-on-one access to me. So go to school, check out the link in the show notes, and check it out. I'll see you guys next time on this Here's the Sacred Designer. Thank you.